Hey, so I have great pride to bring this one today, and one of my maybe one of my only real inspirations in any way that I've encountered over the years in body mod, because I really was never there was never one person that stuck out in my mind as like the person that inspired me, but someone that does always come to mind when people ask me that question is a guy named Bear Belmares. His name was Daryl, but everyone referred to him as Big Ear Bear or Bear Big Ears or some combination of those names. This guy was actually on a documentary called Modify as well.
I remember that one.
Though I knew of him before that documentary too, because there used to be these magazines and the BME zine the forums online where you would see these guys, and it was always like, you know, wow, how did that happen? Like, and I remember him being the first person that I seen large quantities of blackout tattoos on, and what stuck out about this guy was just, well, this picture says 1,000 words. He's not what you would expect.
Ma, he looks like a big sweetheart.
Big old smile on his face, multiple large piercings, huge ears. At one point, I think the biggest ears in the world. I don't know if that still holds.
I've seen some pretty large ones.
Well,
it's
the
hard
hippo
to say.
ear comes to mind now. Hippo ear has massive stretched lobes,
Right?
but
And,
that was far after this guy's
he's
time.
got a good amount of skin on those lobes still. Like, he did a good job stretching them.
Oh, they're fucking healthy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, these are some of the healthiest large
Yeah.
lobes you're ever gonna see.
Yeah, they look
Like,
great.
look, he's got more tissue at the bottom of that lobe than most people have on unstretched lobes.
Oh, yeah.
He's a
They're very good.
master class in ear stretching, but
Well, and it looks like he's done really well. I mean, there's some scars there, but it looks like he's done really well with these eyebrow piercings, too.
yeah, you see how thin his bridge piercing is?
Yeah, well, yours is really thin,
Yeah,
too.
so is Russ Fox's.
Yeah.
Russ Fox has a very small custom bar. He's got almost no tissue left in his bridge. But these are long settled, right? So like that he's tattooed over. You see that?
Yep.
So people are always asking me if my bridge piercing is falling out or migrating or something. It's not
The
migrating.
top one has always been
always
thin.
been.
Always been thin.
They're both thin, but like they both migrated to a point.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with surface piercings.
I think that sometimes the bridge piercings do come out,
Well, yeah, they do. They're very high rejection rate.
Yeah.
But like his, mine got to the place that it's at, and that was that.
Mm-hmm.
It would take some kind of an event for it to,
A real good knock.
maybe more than a good knock. Like it would have to be a tear of some kind.
Yeah.
Right. Then it, like the ones that have happened here. Like I had one here that I lost because of the mask mandate, for example.
Yeah,
It just
that
kept
was
my
really
piercing
shitty.
bent.
It just kept rubbing and bending, and then you lost
But
it.
if generally speaking, migration comes to a place and then stops. But I don't want to talk too much about that because this guy's obviously taken very good care of, all of his mods. Bear here looked at piercing as because he became a piercer himself. Mm-hmm. There's scarce information these days about these things, but Bear was a piercer, body mod artist himself, and seen his work as more like ritualistic, shamanistic, and that was mostly the way it was with a lot of like body mod guys
in the early days.
Yeah, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was much more about like the experiential stuff, and a lot of the people who were heavily modified in those times, it was a lot of below the belt stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of people you wouldn't expect, and so you would go to a guy like this, and you would be going there not just for the piercing, but also the experience, right? But I remember when I encountered him, seeing all this black work, it was very uncommon. There were a few people, but it was really underground.
Well, it was back in the day when the piercers had black sleeves.
Well, that's piercer arm.
Yep.
Is what the whole
Because
thing.
they let the tattooers experiment on them most of the time is what I kind of got out of it.
Well,
and then they just end up blacking it out.
I think for this fella, it was a little bit different than that, but it's beautiful work, especially for its time to have black be that solid and that dark. It's rare these days, let alone then. But Bear here he was a different cat. He was much different than people expected him to be. He was a born-again Christian and very, very devout. He was a very of his faith, but not like, he wasn't one to push it really. He was very humble and kind and forgiving of people who didn't understand him too.
Wow.
He was very soft-spoken and very sweet guy, and not at all like what you would expect him to be if you were, judging a book by the cover.
Yep.
He was one of the first where I was like, look at this, like this is a positive role model.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what was around was like, it was painted in that kind of rock star vein, where it was like, oh, these people are, they're savages. Oh, these people, they're mean. They're dark. They're spooky. Like, and
They're
here's him
worshiping the devil and sacrificing cats.
with a big grin on his face and being a bit of a party, like just like a party tricks and friendly and
like
every
your
time you
quirky
see
grandpa or something.
the biggest, warmest smile you've ever seen. Yeah, like your quirky grandpa.
Yeah.
But like heavily tattooed and heavily pierced and always with a laugh. There was always a funny story and very welcoming figure for the industry, bringing people into it,
Yeah.
And here you have a picture of this woman with their hands between his ears. It's just stuff like this is it's like me sitting here with the mustache, it's with a warmness and kind of a smile and a laugh, right? And I think that especially then there wasn't much of that, and there still isn't as much of that as I would like there to be now.
Yeah.
But there's certainly more of it than there was then. So, but yeah, he's got a really cool look too. I always really liked his look as well.
Do you think he had like the not the bottom of his lobe, but the top where it's a little meatier, like cartilagier there? Do you think he had that scalpel?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think that's not common, but I see it done, when people want to increase size, but they don't want to thin out the bottom of their lobe.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to stretch up, not out, not down.
Look, he's got such a like lush lobe still, and then up here, like the ear does look slightly misshapen, so I am curious if that like is a thing.
At one point, his goal was to be able to put each ear around his head,
Interesting.
so he could wear it almost like a choker.
Yeah.
Like that was his goal when he was talking about it on Modify.
I mean, he could get him into his mouth.
Yeah, though that's not the feat that he was talking about, and I don't know what the limits of our tissue is, because I actually think that it's probably doable, right? Especially like a person's head will vary person to person too,
Yeah.
right? He's got a decent sized noggin on him, so like if this is your head, he probably could do it.
I probably fit my head through
Well,
one of those.
you've got a tiny head.
Yeah.
It's not like mine, right? I've got a fucking beak. I've got a fucking I got a helmet.
You've got a noggin.
Everything about me, like all of my features are large.
You're just making me think of the prominent nose lady.
Also, having big features is a benefit if you want big piercings.
Oh, for sure.
Like I was blessed with huge anatomy.
Oh, yeah. You have large lips, large ears, large nose.
If you don't have large anatomy, and this goes for below the belt too, you can't have certain piercings.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When
I agree with that.
When I got my double didos done,
Your double Diet Coke.
yeah, the double Diet Coke piercings, as Google Translate would have it. When I got those done, I had to get measured first.
Ugh,
And then they had to make jewelry for me.
Yes.
Because it's like, if you don't have a certain anatomy, you can't have that piercing.
Well, that ridge has to be just right.
It has to be of a certain size, or else the piercings won't stay. Because the bars have to be a certain length or they'll migrate.
Yeah.
They do those piercings at a large size, 6 to 8 gauge typically, because small bars will most likely migrate.
Makes
the
sense.
tissue is thin, that it needs to be thicker so it won't migrate. It'll treat it kind of like a paper cut. The point of all this is to say that each of us has different anatomy, so you may never be able to have ears the size of his.
I don't even think I could get my ears to an inch.
Well, no, you could definitely do that.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty close.
You could
but
you could probably get your ears if you were to start stretching them, you could probably get them to a couple inches.
I mean,
like,
if I was to start stretching them again.
yeah, theoretically, like, but you're pushing to the maximum, right?
I
Like,
feel like an inch is a maximum for me. I have really thin skin
no,
at the
it's
bottom
not
of
the
these.
max. See, you'll never know your maximum because you're not looking to go there.
No, definitely not.
But like, you could get your ears quite a bit larger than they are, but probably not as big as he can.
No,
Right?
he looks. I mean, he did look like he's got a little thinning in the.
It would be amazing if he didn't have some thinning.
But I think that's probably what held him back from going larger than his largest. Is that there is that risk of snapping that tissue with every stretch, right?
I think it's also like not to say that you have to slow down when you're getting older. It's just that I think that like you get to a point with your skin where it becomes less elastic too. When you're younger, these things are easier to do. And then like it starts to get harder as you get older, and he was already a fairly old dude, and no disrespect, but like I can imagine your tissue becoming less forgiving and then going, do I really want to risk it?
Yeah, or do I just want to keep my 4 to 5 inch ears?
Because like the real deal scenario is that you love these piercings and they're almost like your babies to some degree, and I've had to lose so many of mine.
Oh yeah.
But like none of them were so important to me as his ears have been to him.
Right.
Like that, he loved his stretched ears. So it's like at a point where if you push much farther, you risk the biscuit. It's like I know a guy who ripped his septum. Right now, that's not something you want to rip.
Nope.
You can fix an earlobe. I don't know what it looks like to fix your septum.
I think it would be pretty tricky.
But anyway, the long story short is that what he achieved, especially then, was quite remarkable, and it has even today. It's still like it's almost unprecedented.
I have a quick lobe question.
Sure.
So I've seen a lot of times like people they'll like snap their lobe like in half towards the bottom.
Yeah.
And I've only ever seen like I see people using a band-aid so that they can wear their plugs, and I've seen people get their ear closed all the way. But could you cut the tissue and reconnect it and then eventually wear plugs again?
You can. It's
without losing.
I don't think you get to keep the same size.
Probably not. Like
I
you're
think
gonna
you
have to
go
cut
down.
and reattach. But like I've never seen that.
I think it's been done, but it's not perfect, and you have to be really careful. And I think you have to go down quite a bit in size so that the tissue doesn't re-split, because the tissue is going to be very thin, even if you're not pushing it anymore.
Right.
Like, it's like after I had my ears tattooed, this one was pretty thin, so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take it down a few sizes, because what do I care?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't
it's
want
not
to
like-
risk it, right?
And visually, it looks almost the same.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much difference does it make? But not to get too much off point here, part of what inspired me about Bear here is just how inviting he was, and how open he was to questions, and how he understood what it must look like to someone who didn't understand this culture, right? Like, it was like there was no question that was stupid, It was always approachable. Like, in the way that he presented it, you could see even an elderly woman at that time in the 90s being like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, and that guy's very nice. When you have people like that, it's easier to bring new people into the subculture. Whereas when you have these people who are impenetrable and they won't break it down for you, and they're completely unrelatable, those are the people who make this stigmatized. Right, and there were a lot of those, and there still are. There's a lot of people who wear this, and they make it the identity of like, I'm the enigma, or not the enigma, the guy, because he's actually but like,
Right.
I'm an enigma, you can't possibly understand me, or
Right. I'm so
I'm badass.
edgy.
He was just always like, if you have a question, ask it. Like, very, very nice, and a very good body mod figure overall, and as cool as he looks, he was an even cooler guy. And unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. He died several years back, and
Sad.
that was one of those ones that actually did make me a little sad, because there aren't too many like this guy, and he's as good as gold in my opinion.